So here we are, some corned pork, some fried cornbread, cabbage with a little bit of pepper jelly. So that's how we like to cook it here in the South, and so that's going to be our meal. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Ken Johnson. So today on Cooking with Ken, what we're going to be talking about is the corning process, specifically corned pork. Now, you probably have never heard of corned pork before, and probably you don't understand what corning really is. So it goes back to Ireland, and it was a way of preserving meat. And so you had landlords, and then you had the serfs or workers that were renting from the landlord, and different parts of Ireland did different things. And you would have saltpeter, which was from moss that was decayed in the ground, and that was a primary fuel source, but it's also a way of preserving food. That's where we get the nitrates for curing meats. That's where that tradition came from, is using the nitrates from the saltpeter. And so originally what would happen is that the Irish people would take barrels and fill it with saltpeter, and then these big grains of salt. Salt that is real big, they would call that corning salt or corn salt. So corn back in the old days, before America was even thought of, really was just a English term for grain. There was, obviously they didn't have corn until America was discovered by the Europeans. I mean, Native Americans, we've always had it, but the Europeans didn't have it. And then once they saw this corn, this grain, the name kind of stuck in America. That's what we use. Over in Europe, they use the term maize. But this salt is really big, size of a grain kernel, and so they called it corn salt or corning salt. And you would take it and you would put that in the barrels with the meat. The Irish, they sold the British both beef and pork that was corned. Obviously this is really, really salty. Basically you got beef ham at that point in time. And so to combat the flavor, what they would do, people would cook it with pickling spices, or what we know today as pickling spices. So your bay leaves, your cloves, cinnamon, anything that is a warming spice, that all gets together, and they would cook it that way. And they've been doing it for centuries. But over the years, pork fell away. So the idea of corned pork, you don't see that much unless you're in the Caribbean. That took off, and that has been there for a long time. And so that what I'm going to is back to the old days, back when they would do beef and pork. Beef right now is too expensive to corn, so we're going to do pork. Stay tuned. Alright, in this cooking pot, I'm going to go ahead and add a ½ gallon of water. Now we got a ½ cup firmly packed brown sugar ready. Now we're going to do a tablespoon of hot paprika. This is Hungarian paprika. This is the OG. If you don't have hot paprika, you can always use cayenne. Next we're going to use a tablespoon of cinnamon, a tablespoon of allspice, a tablespoon of ground coriander, 1 tablespoon of nutmeg, tablespoon of white pepper, tablespoon of ground bay leaves, and tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Now we're going to use a ½ teaspoon of ground cloves. Now 1 cup of plain table salt, non-iodized. Alright, we got this nice and stirred up. I'm going to bring this up to temp. Basically what I'm going to do is just kind of bring it to a simmer and turn it off. I'm not really trying to get to a rolling boil. I just want to simmer it just a little bit, get those smells and volatile oils and all that out of it and into the brine, and then we'll let it cool and add in our next ingredient. And we're now at a simmer, so we're going to let this cool down, but it tastes really good. A little salty, but it's got to be salty. You could go a little stronger on the sugar, but I wouldn't go too much stronger. Really and truly, this is going to take a while to just kind of sit. It's going to pull a lot of flavors out, so trust the process. Now we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of pink curing salts. This is not Himalayan salt or any of the pink salt you see in the store. This is a curing salt. This is curing salt number 1. You could use curing salt number 2 for longer soaks, but since we're only going to be doing this for about a week, curing salt number 1 will work. Remember, when you're adding in pink curing salts, add it in when the water is below 165. Do not add it in immediately, otherwise it'll start breaking down. The first meat type that we're actually going to deal with is a half boneless pork loin. It was $2.19 a pound at the supermarket, so it's $4.75 total, so less than $5. This is my absolute least favorite cut of pork, and I am a pork connoisseur. I love pork, and I just do not like pork loin. So if I can take this and make pork loin good, that's fantastic. You can always make sandwiches or something. Alright, so just making sure we got everything off of it. That looks good, but you got silver skin you gotta deal with. Nobody likes silver skin. This is the reason why I dislike pork loin. No fat whatsoever is the worst cut. So if you don't cut the silver skin off, you're going to be sorry. You can see it looks like little threads when you pull them apart. And they don't break down. It's just sadness waiting to happen if you leave it on there. Okay, that is the pork. Now, what you need to do is poke a bunch of holes in here to let the pickling spice get in there. And I run my knife this way because the actual grains run this way. And so it's better to do it this way than it is to do them across, because then you're cutting into the grains more. And I'm not going all the way to the other end. I'm going about halfway or so, just so that it can go into the meat, but I'm not trying to go all the way through. Sometimes I'll hit a soft spot and it'll go all the way through, but most of the time it stops about midway. Alright, so that's that. This right here is a whole Boston butt. It's 9.75 pounds. It's $1.60 a pound at the grocery store. If they cut it, they add another $1. So if you want it cut in half, they add $1 per pound for making one cut. So every time the butcher does something at the grocery store, it's adding money. So if you can do something at home and not have the butcher do it, you're going to be saving a ton of money per pound. This isn't a really fatty piece right here, which is good. That's not fatty, but what I am noticing is that we got a good bone that we need to get out of here. So I made a wild cut here. The bone runs this way, crossed. So what I may do is follow this seam here. Cut right here. I'm wanting to show you what I'm doing. See how that bone is flat right there? All it is, I found a seam between two muscles, and I'm just using my knife to kind of follow that bone is all I'm doing. Right, now I'm coming around this bone here. Joint up in here. You can feel it with your fingers. That's the main thing. Just feel around with your fingers. Okay. So that right there is part of the shoulder blade. They cut it off in trimming. Really and truly, this right here is just too matted up, gummed up. We're not going to use that. That's where that. Now what we're going to do is standard. This going everywhere, every which direction. So you just do the best you can. Same thing. Try to go with the grain if you can, but it's very hard to do that. Go in through the side on some of this. Some of this I'm not. You had a fishing knife, fillet knife, that might work a little bit better. But just because I had some muscles running weird, I want to make sure I get some in the muscles. And that's that. I got a 2-gallon bag. Now, personally, I would like to have a tub and a refrigerator big enough for a tub and submerge this, but I don't have that. So we're doing it like a home cook would, because guess what? I'm a home cook. No big YouTube channel. This is just us home cooks. So I put this in here and putting this in here. Okay. Alright, so the typical rule when you're using curing salts is a teaspoon for 5 pounds. Alright, so we went well over that, but we're using a different method than the equilibrium method. We're using the soaking brine, so you go a little bit heavier on it. The other thing is, normally with pink curing salts you do 1 day per pound. So you should let this set for about 12 to 13 days. However, due to the amount of curing salts I have in here and the way that I'm allowing the curing salts into the meat with the knife, I'm going to speed it up because I'm not actually trying to cure the meat. I'm trying to just give it the impression of cured corned beef. So this is not meant to be shelf stable and be taken overseas like back in the old days. That's the way corned beef was, and also corned pork. What I'm doing instead is I'm just giving the flavor. So what we're going to do is take this right here, and I'm going to get a ladle, and I'm going to ladle it in to this bag here. I'll come back when I'm done. Alright guys, so we got all the liquid in here. We got got the air out. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. I'm going to just kind of massage this every day, once a day. Kind of get all that stuff in there good. And then I'll be back in 7 days to show you what it looks like. Alright, so this is the corned beef. It's out of the brine. We'll take this, rinse this off, and show you what it looks like after it gets cleaned up. Alright, so here we are. I washed most of the spices off of it. Now right here you'll see that's a little lighter. it had touched up against the ham. I couldn't get it moved around as good as I wanted to. So this right here is a little less cured, and you can see a difference between that and that. So this is more cured than this. But all in all, fairly happy with the cure. I'm pulling this one day early, so this is going on the full amount. What we're going to do, I'm going to take this right here. This is just a loaf pan. I'm going to put this in the loaf pan so keep it shaped better. And I'm going to put a piece of aluminum foil over it. And we'll put this into the oven. I got 375, and we'll cook it until it's done. Something I will say is that digital thermometers are awesome. So I got this as a Christmas present from my wife. Just put it in the middle and set it up to your phone, and it'll ring when it's done. I want an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright, this right here has been chilled and rested. Now what we're going to do is just go ahead and cut off some thin slices. Enough for sandwiches. Here we go. I'm going to get one of the center pieces right here. Pull it out. See how it looks. It's got a pink hue to it. Pretty tender. Salty. It has those corned beef flavors, but definitely not corned beef. But it's got ham notes too. Very unique. Very unique. I'm going to make some french fries, serve this as a sandwich, and then we'll do the other tomorrow. I'll make corn pork and cabbage and show that. This right here is the corned pork sandwich with some homemade french fries. Alright, so this is the corned pork. I'm going to rinse it off, and I'm going to show you how we're going to fix this, because I don't want it to taste like the sandwich, because the sandwich meat just basically tasted like ham that hadn't been smoked. I want to have it taste a little different. I want it to be a long line of corned beef. I know that's impossible. Corned pork is a totally different product, but I don't want it to taste like ham, because the whole part of corning is supposed to be something special. So I don't know how it's going to work. So first thing we're going to do is get a Dutch oven. This right here is 2 yellow onions cut into eighths. And just put this enough, just put something on the bottom for the meat to rest on, kind of roast a little bit, that's all. Now what you'll use is a bottle of your favorite beer. I like Belgian Whites myself, although a Erdinger would be good with this. There we go. Alright, now we're going to use a few tablespoons of pickling spices. Alright, so I've got this rinsed off, washed off all I could off of it. Now I'm adding water. Just want a good amount, about an inch from the lid. Good enough. This is a 7-quart Dutch oven, so what we'll do is lid it up, and we'll go ahead and put this into a 375 degree oven until it's cooked all the way through. Alrighty, so this right here is the corned pork. It's out of the oven, cooked very well in the Dutch oven. So here we are, some corned pork, some fried cornbread, cabbage with a little bit of pepper jelly. So that's how we like to cook it here in the South, and so that's going to be our meal. I'll be back in a little bit with a tasting note on this. So let's talk about this. Now you're going to get something that is essentially ham, because what is ham but nothing more than some nitrates and salt? And you can't get around that. But look at this. This has a lot of fat. Now of course it's cooled off, but it looks very similar to the corned beef. And when you cut it against the grain, there you go. that looks very similar to corned beef. Does it taste like corned beef? No. But yes, it is like corned beef and ham had a love child. And so the trick with this is that you need a really, really fatty piece of meat. Pork belly is commonly used. You also see pork shoulder commonly used. Lean pieces don't do that well, but you need that fat. And this is actually more popular in the Caribbean, even though it started out really in Ireland. The whole corning process, and the corning process was named for the salt, and the salt was very thick and big, a little bit bigger than what we call kosher salt, and that's the reason why it was called corned beef, is that they would have corned salt or corned pork, and those little pellets of salt is what they would use to salt the meats. But done this way, I think a little bit more beer would have helped out, but it tastes very similar to corned beef, and yet it's not. It has a hammy taste to it. It's different. Is it something I would do every year? No. But right now, I looked for a brisket, and I was going to get a brisket, and they wanted $150 something for a brisket. And I was like, no, I'm not paying that for a brisket. Forget it. And I got this very cheap, very affordable. I think I paid $20 for both pieces of pork or something like that, around 20 bucks. And it was like $1 something a pound, not even $2 a pound for pork. So it's well worth it to give it a try. Like I said, it's very good. So this won't be going to waste. Like this, it won't be going on a sandwich like a ham sandwich. Now the other that I did with loin, you can treat it just like a ham sandwich. There's no reason doing it. I just wanted to try this out because I wanted to see how much of a difference there would be between what is really more popular in Jamaica now and the Caribbean. But I mean, it used to be more popular than what it is now. It used to be far more popular to have corned pork. Corned beef was always something, but corned pork was actually very popular at one point in time. But I thought that was kind of neat. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Yes, you're going to get hammy notes. I mean, basically you're making ham. That's what you're doing when you do beef. You're doing beef ham versus pork ham. And when nitrates hit pork, there is that distinctive flavor that you get from pork ham. There's nothing you can do about that. You're going to have that flavor. Where the trick is the fat. The fat does not do the same way as the meat in the processing or curing. And we did a quick cure, but even in long cure, it's the same thing. The fat is key to this dish. And like most time, people will use pork belly or pork shoulder for this purpose. I wanted to use pork loin to see just how bad really was. So if you do something that's not fatty, you basically have made ham. You can dress it up as much as you want to. You're not going to get that corned beef-like flavor. Not very easily. But when you got a lot of fat in it, then it kind of breaks it up and you get those flavors better, because some of those flavors are fat soluble. So you need the fat to pick up those seasoning spices. And then of course cooking it with beer and onions, that does also help out a lot. Like I said, I would double the amount of beer next time that I used, or used a darker beer or something along that lines. But yeah, it really, and cold, hot versus cold, our tongue doesn't register taste the colder it gets as well as it does when it gets warmer. Ideally 170 degrees Fahrenheit is what your food needs to be for it to taste the best. And when you got it out of a refrigerator and you're making sandwiches, it's hard to tell that that is pork versus corned beef when you're slicing it, especially thin, and you're making a sandwich. Oh my goodness, that's good. Now the pork loin, definitely, you know, you got a ham sandwich on your hands. It is what it is. You could do this with an already cured ham. Just make sure you got a really fatty ham and just put the beer and the pickling spices. If you want to get something kind of like it, it's not going to be the same, but kind of like it. Pork shoulder is just a totally different animal. It's got the perfect amount of fat to meat. But give it a try. I think it's worth giving it a shot at least once. Please let me know if you do try this. What's your favorite way of cooking corned beef or corned pork if you make corned pork? Let me know what you like to do with it. And I'll see y'all guys again next time. Bye.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?